Thank you so very much. We go for the final session. That's the valedictory address, and I must thank General Kuldip for accepting this. It's a great honor. We request you to give the valedictory address for us. General Kuldip is a former Director General Army Air Defence. He's not only a very tall man at 6 feet 4 inches. He's also a very tall figure as far as the Army Air Defence is concerned, and as far as the armed forces are concerned. Having seen him and worked together, he has a thought process which is honestly unmatched by many. He looked at the theaterization of the Army Air Defence, and whatever we see today with the Army Air Defence, there's a lot of work which has gone in by all Director Generals, and General Kuldip is one of them. Without much ado, over to General Kuldip Singh for the valedictory address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, General Bhatia. It's a pleasure being invited here to give this address. General Arora, General Bhatia, erstwhile colleagues, distinguished speakers, industry, and DRDO participants, sponsors, and the very patient audience. A very good afternoon to all of you. Pleasure for me to be invited to give this address at the end of the seminar. The sessions over the past 3 days have been very interesting and informative, with a number of important and valid points having emerged in the course of the presentations by various speakers and, of course, the session chairs. The timing of the seminar this time has been very different from the previous seminars on the same subject conducted over the past few years. If I remember correctly, the first seminar on air and missile defense was conducted in 2009 under the aegis of the Army AD Directorate. Of course, the organizations and the sponsors may have been different. The timing is different in the sense two very significant policy reforms have been announced. First is the creation of an Army Air Defence Command, impacting the very way the air defence battle is going to be fought in the future. And secondly, this aspect of Atam Nirbharta in defence acquisition, which will shape future acquisition of weapon systems, including that for the three services, including the Army, Air Force, Navy, and other air defence weapons too. Coming to the first policy, which is the creation of a joint or integrated air defence command. What I speak about the air defence command is from open literature as reported, rightfully so. We, the community in the civil dress, are not fully aware of the modalities of the air defence command, and we leave that to those in uniform today. And I am very sure that they shall do an excellent job of creating a very viable and robust joint air defence command that will meet the requirement of an integrated air defence operation now and in the distant future. It was in January 2020 that the creation of an integrated air defence command was proposed to look after the air defence operations of the Indian Armed Forces. Headed by a 3-star officer from the Indian Air Force, it will integrate all the relevant assets of the branches of the Indian Armed Forces under a single command authority. The Air Defence Command, which will be responsible for protecting the country's airspace from air attacks through missiles, drones, fighter jets, and all other types of aerial threat vehicles, will have all the air defence assets of the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy under its operational command, so that there is better coordination and quick reaction during an air attack. However, it should be borne in mind that critical assets of the nation, those of the Army, those of the Navy, and those of the Air Force, receive due air defense protection during all stages of the battle, preferably by those elements who have trained together and understand the battle procedures of the supported elements. Quoting from what General Saxena has written about and mentioned, and I quote, "Much caution needs to be exercised to ensure that while the air defense resources of the country are brought under the banner of Air Defense Command, the uniqueness of each service and its distinct expertise in executing air defense functions in its respective core competency domains is not lost. I think most of us agree to these views, since it is about war-waging skills in a particular service honed after decades of training and on-ground experience. Why I mentioned the backdrop is for the simple reason that when such transformation is taking place, it is imperative that besides adopting new ideas, new operational doctrines, new challenges on integration, new concepts and training and opportunities and new SOPs, the most important, and if I may say so, the most difficult change is going to be attitudinal change. I say this because I have witnessed this closely in the 70s and early 80s when the then Indian Army Air Defense, then called the Air Defense Artillery, was transforming from basically a static role deployed on airfields and other static assets to the protection of assets in the field army, mostly of mobile assets, with the induction of the 23mm twin gun systems, Shilka, and a host of missile systems like the Quadrat, Osa-AK, Igla, and the Strela 10M. Incidentally, I was the team leader for the induction of the Strela 10M in the Indian Army. I learned that our attitudes had to change from slow-moving to quick decision-making without referring everything to the headquarters up the chain of command. Of course, there were a multitude of challenges in the training and operational front, which were quickly overcome due to changes in attitude at all levels, starting from section to the brigade commanders. The same, I am sure, will be applicable in the present context too. Why I mention all this is because, as we have seen over the course of this seminar, the air threat has drastically changed over the past decade. Consequently, to meet the new threats, we need to find out-of-the-box cost-effective, I repeat, cost-effective and tactically effective solutions to meet these threats. I will list two examples of the new kind of threats from recent events. I'm sure you've read about them or heard about them. The first example relates to an event in January 18, where a Russian airbase in Syria came under attack from a drone swarm, which was incidentally the first of its kind in history. It rendered the aircraft mission kills, not a bad deal indeed, to trade improvised drones wrapped in plastic sheets and with parts held together by tape for mission-killed multi-million-dollar combat jets. The second example is of a slightly later September 19 strike on oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. This, despite the lavish amounts the kingdom spent on its air defenses. None of the drones or missiles used during the attack were intercepted. Arguably, it heralded the dawn of a challenging new era in air defense in the 2020s. In the coming decade, we could see a large-scale and fully networked strike involving not just kamikaze drones and cruise missiles, but also more combat-capable drones launching their own ordnance. To compound matters, their approach to the target could be coordinated from different vectors to overwhelm the defender. These weapons could also be pre-configured to approach the target where they are least expected, or perhaps to increase deniability in the day and age where gray zone operations are par for the course. While the defender is currently playing catch-up, it is still not too late if the challenge is duly recognized and if authorities could muster the political and, if I may say so, the financial capital to tackle these threats head-on. Another change in the air threat that we need to keep in mind is from non-state actors, both in peace and war. We have very wily neighbors who will finance, they will plan, they will coordinate, and then blame the non-state actors to carry out operations through the medium of air, and then deny any linkages with the supposed non-state actors. I am sure that this seminar, the lesson learnt about defeating the air threat, would lead to a multitude of solutions, and the air defense warriors would emerge the winners in the cat and mouse game. Coming to the second aspect which I mentioned earlier, about Atam Nirbharta in defense weapon acquisitions. In earliest August 20, MOD released a negative list of items for defense import. The list has high-tech weapons of all types, including radars and other ordnance of the Indian Armed Forces. The Defense Minister then stated this will help in providing a huge opportunity to the private defense industry to manufacture the items mentioned in the negative list. The private industry will also have an option to use the technologies developed and designed by DRDO. This will help in Atam Nirbharta in the defense sector and help meet the requirements of the Indian Armed Forces. Unquote. I hope steps will be taken that the timelines for the production of the equipment is met and that there will be a mechanism in place for handholding the industry by the defense services and the Ministry of Defense. Also, it is interesting to note that the MOD has also bifurcated the capital procurement budget for 2021 between domestic and foreign capital procurement routes. It's a welcome change. The challenge, however, lies in converting intent to action. The devil, of course, lies in the detail. The government has been trying to buoy up defense manufacturing since the past 6 years. However, not much happened on the ground due to a host of reasons. One foremost reason has been the lack of clarity on how to take it forward. It is, however, very heartening to hear from General Johar on the steps being taken in this regard to help indigenize a lot of defense products. I am sure that he and his team will take all necessary actions to convert intent into action. A small suggestion. There is a pressing need to change the fundamental approach to acquisitions. Projects for manufacture of new systems need to be taken forward through collaboration rather than competition. Collaborative prototyping aims at collaboration between the public and the private sector, as has been done in the case of Dhanush and a few other programs, wherein capabilities of the army maintainers, of the OFP and the private sector were consolidated. Why not roll out strategic partnerships between OFP, DPSUs and private entities in the future too? I am sure that in the not too distant future, the Atam Nirbharta in defense acquisition will lead to indigenous air defense weapons and C&R systems being produced within the country. And these, of course, would be matching the best available in the world. However, a word of caution here. When the aim is Atam Nirbharta, let the aim decide the procedures, and let the procedures not be a hindrance to the aim. This has been a problem area in the past very, very often. There are numerous examples. There is no time to quote them here, but let the aim decide the procedures and not vice versa. What then? In the backdrop of these two major policy decisions and the enhanced air threat covered very well in the seminar is the way forward for air and missile defense in the country. First and foremost, for the planners, think ahead and think far ahead into the future. For example, soft kill weapons will be the order of the day, with hard kill weapons taking a backseat in the very distant future. Secondly, in the current context, complement long-range strategic air defense weapons with shorter-range tactical air defense weapons, creating a very healthy mix to defend critical assets of the three services and other national assets. Thirdly, develop a robust and responsive AD, C&R and battle management system catering for the need of the three services. Ideally, we should have common operating platforms and communications, but in the absence of the same, as on today, in the short term, the sensor and communication grids should be integrated for relevant users. This is of critical importance for ground-based air defense as well, as they will need access to both Army and Air Force networks. Fourthly, individual system requirements for weapon platforms need to be well thought out to operate in various terrains, catering for a multitude of air threats. For example, newer systems should be self-contained single platform systems. Each unit, that is an individual weapon system, should be capable to act as a node hooked onto the grid and have the ability to operate isolated and yet remain integrated with overall operational plan by hooking onto the sensor and information grid. Fifthly, work out requirements of Integrated Air Defense Command in a well thought out and a judicious manner. Lastly, remember that we will exact a heavy price to be prepared for the next war, but the price will be heavier if we are not prepared. So the government has to allocate adequate funds and the armed forces have to utilize them judiciously. General Bhatia, as you mentioned earlier, you had allotted me 15 minutes. I have taken precisely 14 minutes, 59 seconds. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, General Kuldip. Very good of you accepted and delivered the valedictory address. Attitudinal changes, intent to action, collaborate rather than compete. Absolutely very well said, because no one could have done it better than you. Thank you very much. We are at the end of the day. It's the third day today. Fatigue does set in, and it's also lunchtime. And like General G.D. Bakshi always says, hunger leads to anger. So I will not expose myself to any anger. Just a couple of more minutes, and I'll hand over to General Arora thereafter. This is the first ever webinar come virtual exhibition at CENJOWS, and there have been some technical issues out there, especially yesterday. Today was very smooth. We are in the process of learning. Learning and improving is, of course, everyday affair. We do that. Air and missile defenses, I think, extremely important. India's security challenges are one too many, and without air and missile defense, I think we will be vulnerable in all our domains whatsoever. These are very challenging times. We have had new challenges starting with 2020. The COVID-19 has been a challenge. China has been a challenge. I was commissioned. China was a long-term threat. When I retired, China continued to remain a long-term threat. But in the MO, I should always tell them, rather, there's a section that deals with terrorism. There's always a you spend so much time with MO1, we deal with China. I spent most of my time with China, and some capability development did take place. We got the Mountain Strike Corps through. We did a lot of other things and infrastructure development and things like that. We moved this brigade to Subsector North, which is there right now in the center of things. So that was something which is already there. So what actually is transpiring is that in the near future and near to midterm, because COVID-19, the resources will be less and less, and because of China, the two-war front, the security challenges, the non-traditional security challenges which we have seen now as a pandemic, the armed forces will be required, will be asked, will be tasked to do more and more with less and less. The challenge lies, how do we do that? And that is where I think integration has to come in, enjoyment has to come in. We have to optimize all our resources. We have to optimize all our organizations. And the idea is not to divide, but to integrate. So that challenge, I think, lies. And more importantly, it is not only the armed forces. We'll have to integrate the technologies. We'll have to integrate the industry. We'll have to integrate the scientific community and the academia. Everyone has to move together as one. Just the armed forces alone will not be able to do much about it. The industry is at takeoff stage. We have seen major changes in the Ministry of Defense and the decisions being taken. The DMA has come as a really game changer. If you recollect, on the 16th of May, the Raksha Mantri gave out certain defense reforms with regard to the private defense industry. And while giving out the defense reforms for the private industry, she alluded to, or she attributed it to, that this has the approval of the DMA. No, she did not say Ministry of Defense. She said DMA. So that is an indicator of the importance and of the contribution of the DMA. The next was when the negative list came up a couple of weeks ago, the 101 items, and it was again said this is on the recommendation of the DMA. So for once we have the accountability and authority which is aligned. The authority and accountability lies with the CDS. And CDS was here on this platform yesterday, and he was categorical about it, that the aerospace theatre, he said, and it's not Aero Defense Command anymore, it is aerospace theatre, that is what he said yesterday, will be there by the end of this year. Now, issue is to get it right. The transition has to be seen through. The transition management is exceedingly important. The mindsets will continue at the cost of repeating myself. Some of you must have heard earlier. I was the co-chair for the defense cooperation with the U.S. Defense Force with Hawaii. I had gone there, and I was being hosted by the PECOM U.S. Army. And they keep you very busy, but there was one afternoon which was free, and we decided to play golf at the PECOM Army Golf Course Fort Shafter. When we were playing golf, my host, who was a 3-star again, PECOM Army commander, he says, General, the Navy got a lovely course. So I said, well, then why are you not playing out there? He says, no, the Navy does not allow the Army to play. Right. So that is something which is always there. The Army versus Navy versus Air Force will continue. But the fact is that we have to be proud of our own service, but integration is a must. And just to carry this further, next year when I had gone to the PECOM Navy, and the 3-star admiral out there was very nice, and he said, General, I believe you want to play golf. I said, yes. He said, why do you not play the naval course? It's very good. So I told him, I believe you don't let the Army play. He said, no, that's the US Army, not the Indian Army. So that is something which we have to see, that these are mindsets which have to continue. So we have to look at the industry, especially contributing its might now. We are at a takeoff stage. Atmanirbharta cannot happen with the ordnance factories and the DPCs alone. The ordnance factories are in all likelihood going to get corporatized. So the corporatization of the ordnance factory is there. The industry has to exploit this opportunity, and we should not. Atmanirbhar cannot be a slogan. It has to be translated to action, to on ground. I always keep saying that the Indian Armed Forces are by far one of the best, most battle-hardened, combat-rich, disciplined, committed. You name it, we have it. But in the long run, we are still a military force and not a military power. What stops us being a military power is basically we are not self-reliant. 65 to 70% of our equipment, major arms and ammunition and platforms are ex-import. Till we become Atmanirbhar or self-reliant, I think we'll contribute to a military force, and that is where I think everyone has to come together and move together. And that is where CENJOWS, in concert with the IMR, we try to provide a platform to all the stakeholders to come together, to understand each other, to have better congruence and cooperation, convergence, and let's move forward as one. So whatever the concerns were, the industry has given the capability concerns. I'm thankful to the industry for participating. My special thanks also go to the sponsors, Rafael Industries, Bharat Forge, and Saraloha. Thank you very much. Before I end, I thank each of the participants who are here. I thank all the speakers, all the panelists, the chairs out here. And also, my special thanks goes to the industry who's been in big strength even here throughout the last 3 days. I will again like to thank the senior veterans who've been here. It was very encouraging to see among the participants who have joined the Air Chief Marshal, the former Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Roop Raha. We have got former CNCs, both from the Army and the Air Force. General Ali Chet is there, General Sani is there, General Daljit is there. We have General Anil Chopra here. We also have former DG Army Air Defense out here as part of this thing. General Naresh Chand is here. General Kuldip, of course. We have General Mukherjee. We have General Saxena, General Rajiv Bhatia. And all the stakeholders from the industry and the scientific community are here. But with this, we end out here. I hand over to General Rhoda for the vote of thanks. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and Jai Hind.
Sorry for that brief interruption. Thank you. It is now my duty to thank everybody who made this event possible. And firstly, the Chief of Defence Staff, his Secretariat, Headquarters Integrated Defence Staff, and the Service Headquarters because of the change of date which happened due to operational reasons, they were flexible enough to ensure that everybody was made available for the new dates. And from the Air Headquarters, especially the Vice Chief of Air Staff, the Director General Air Operations, that is Air Marshal H.S. Arora and Air Marshal B.R. Krishna, their operations and air defense branches. From Army Headquarters, the Army Air Defense Directorate and the Army Design Bureau. From Naval Headquarters, again, the Vice Chief of Naval Staff, who made their best speaker of the subject available, that is Commander Inder Kumar Singh. Ernest and Young for being our knowledge partner, who produced a paper on air defense, which is available under handouts to download. We will also send the link for downloading them by email to all the participants who have registered. We have your email address. I'd like to thank, on behalf of CENJOWS and IMR, all the distinguished chairmen who spared time and effort to be with us, particularly General V.K. Saxena, Air Marshal Anil Chopra, Air Marshal Ramesh Rai, Major General A.K. Channan, and of course Lieutenant General Kuldip Singh for having given the valedictory address. I'd like to thank DRDO and in DRDO, the Advanced Systems Laboratory and the LRDE for having made available scientists F, the best in the field on their subject, to speak to us. I'd like to thank the lead sponsor, Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, and the other premium sponsors, Bharat Forge and Sarloha, as well as the exhibitors for having pitched in to make this event possible. I'd like to thank all the delegates and participants who have attended over the days. We hope that you have benefited from it. On our part, we will make a recording of all the sessions, all the 7 sessions available on YouTube. The links to these sessions will be available on the imrmedia.in website. They will be available at any time, and you can watch and download them. Have a nice day, and this event or this exhibition and the videos will be available tomorrow, being played from 10 to 12 and 2 to 4 tomorrow at this site. The same link will work. Thank you very much.